Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
Well, hello and welcome. My name is Paul Fife, host of this show where I interview leaders heading up mission-focused organizations, always leading from the heart, inspiring others, including me, and making a difference in our communities. This episode is sponsored by Gregory, which is a certified B Corporation. To learn more about what a B Corporation is, not many people do because there's only a few thousand in the world, or what Paul Gregory Media does, visit paulgregorymedia.com. Excited about today's episode. I have with me Jenifer Fabian, who prefers to be called Jenny, and she is the CEO of the People's Resource Center. So welcome, Jenny. Thanks for being on the show.
Paul, thanks so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I am delighted. I have a little snippet of a bio that I'm just going to read for our listeners. Experienced mission-oriented nonprofit executive. All right, so there's a mouthful. With 20 plus years managing and directing operations, administrative systems, with experience in strategy and program development, budget oversight, board leadership, and consultative training. And folks, she oversees, I think, this is what was written down, over 2,000 staff and volunteers. Is that right? 2,000 staff and volunteers?
The updated number would be over 2,300. So you're technically accurate, but it keeps increasing.
Wow. So 23. And then also nearly, and I don't know where this number came from, but I have nearly 30,000 DuPage residents that turn to PRC.
Correct. Between 25 and 30,000 folks that we serve every year.
My gosh. So what I'd love to know, and I'll just ask this question right off the bat, what is, we call it PRC affectionately, but People's Resource Center. What is People's Resource Center? What kind of services do they provide to our community?
People's Resource Center is a neighbor-to-neighbor mission that was founded right here in DuPage County. Our origins began in Wheaton in the year 1975, when a small group of neighbors came together and were concerned about folks down the street who had a hard time putting groceries on the table for their kids, making sure their families had clothes and working transportation and a whole host of challenges. And our founder, Dorothy McIntyre, who was one of those forces of nature that it was hard to say no to, brought folks together to say, we don't know what this is going to look like, but we want to be the kind of community that shows up for one another and helps people over those bumps in the road, because those happen for all of us, and we don't want that to be a spiral that creates a crisis for an individual or a family. So Dorothy and her friends came together in 1975, rented a small house in Wheaton, and gave out groceries through a basement window. And I just love that origin story. They weren't trying to start an organization. They were trying to show up for people who just needed help over a tough situation. And that year they served 125 neighbors through the basement window with food. And we have expanded. The organization's 49 and a half years old now. So that's my planting a seed for a big anniversary for us for next year when we turn 50. And we have expanded not only in the kinds of programs we offer, but in the number of people we serve, up to that 25 to 30,000 that you mentioned earlier, Paul. Everything that we've added on has been in response to what we've heard from the neighbors who come to us, in dialogue with the volunteers who make everything work. So it's a very, very exciting mission to be part of. It's really, we try to keep our grassroots focus and stay true to those founding values of being responsive and welcoming every time somebody comes to the door.
So I have to ask, is Dorothy still with PRC in some fashion, or?
In spirit, 100%. She passed away in the 80s, and so I never got to meet her, but try to keep that spirit going. She was notoriously camera shy, so we only have 2 photos of her, and we have them strategically displayed in a couple places. But she was much more focused on go make a difference than silliness like pictures. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Doing then rather than promoting.
Yep.
So I'm also interested, of course, in you, Jenny, what led you to this organization? What's been your history, and then what kind of led you to People's Resource Center?
So I am an East Coast transplant, but I've been here in the Chicago area for over 30 years now. So more than I've lived anywhere else. And I came here after graduating from Penn State. Um, and with a microbiology degree, just because, that obviously leads into social services.
Of course, I can see
I
the
laugh at
connection.
that all the time. But I've always found myself drawn to how do we really help people now? How do we use the analytics that I was interested in and the data and understanding systems and all those things, but really making a difference for people who need it. And so when I came to Chicago at that point, I came with a faith-based volunteer program, and they placed me to work in a homeless shelter in Chicago. And I worked there for several years. It was an amazing way to learn about the city. It was a non-traditional way to learn about the city. Visiting every homeless shelter in the, in the north and west and south sides was a real eye-opener for a young person from rural East Coast. So it was a tremendous learning experience. I found the Midwest very welcoming and friendly, and put down roots here, and I eventually sought out a public health master's program as a way to blend my interest in science and understanding of systems with really helping people today. I've worked in nonprofits exclusively. That was not a plan that I necessarily set out doing, but it was an outgrowth of the experience with coming to Chicago, and have absolutely loved it. And I so appreciate the amazing array of people that has brought me into contact with. Some of the best and most caring and committed people on the planet. And I think that's also who PRC attracts. And that's why this opportunity, I joined the team 7 years ago. And it's just been amazing. There is no other team I'd want to go through a pandemic with. Not that I want to go through another one, but that has been its own adventure within the really meaningful mission of PRC.
Wow. And yeah, they always say surround yourself with people that you really want to come to work with every day, be
Yes.
inspired by, right?
Yes.
In some circles, they say, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and sometimes that's true too.
Yes.
Um, hmm. East Coast transplant. I just have to go back to that for a second because I think you got me beat by 1 year. I'm
Oh.
29 years now from Jersey, and
Oh.
I know you went to Penn State. Were you also in Pennsylvania, or were you?
Southeastern PA, so in the Reading area, but it's
Oh
a
yeah,
tiny little town that got its first traffic light my senior year of high school. So I usually start with Pennsylvania and then see if anybody wants to know more specifics.
yeah, yeah.
So
South of
we're
the border.
neighbors.
Yeah, kind of. Yep, yep. All right. So, yeah, because we were like an hour outside of Philly, I believe, hour east of Philly.
Same metro area. Yep.
Yep. Yep. All right. So you don't get into any nonprofit without its challenges. And certainly, I'm sure you had yours. So, how long? Let's start with this. How long have you been with the organization now?
7 years.
7 years.
That's
Okay. Lucky seven. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what kind of challenges have you faced and overcame in those 7 years? Obviously, the big one, right? The pandemic. That's huge.
I would say one of PRC's superpowers has always been the extent to which people care so deeply. Our volunteers and our supporters and everybody that cheers PRC along is drawn to our mission because they care so deeply. Um, one of the ways, before COVID, one of the ways that showed up is it could be really hard to change something because people were very invested in the way we've always done something, or a particular approach to a problem that may have benefited from a little more creativity. So I can't take the credit for addressing this, but I would say that the COVID experience of going through that really forced us to be able to change rapidly, try multiple things, adjust approaches multiple times a day as we were growing, as we were responding to a different intensity of need. So that's we're kind of made lemonade out of that difficult situation, because coming out of the pandemic and post COVID, that is a huge strength for us right now. We're much more agile, we're much more adaptable, and much more willing to try new things. And I really see that opening up a lot of doors for PRC as we think about what we're going to do in the future. We're just now wrapping up our strategic plan that is culminating with a building project to expand our campus in Wheaton. And that's been an issue for us and a limiting factor in terms of our services for many, many years. So now we get to look toward the future and say, given what we've learned and given what we're able to do now, what should we do next? And that's going to be really exciting. And I think we're ready for that in a different way than we would have been before 2020.
And well, I'm not going to say gloss over, but it's kind of a big deal, this new facility, right? Which is
yes,
right
it's
next door to your wheat facility, right?
Yes.
And we've seen some walkthroughs from the renderings and where different things are going to be located. It's kind of this is going to alleviate a lot of the limitations that you have now, I believe, right?
It absolutely was. So we've been in our existing facility in Wheaton for almost 20 years now. And the wonderful thing back in 1995, when that facility was put together, is that all PRC services were under one roof. So we have services to help with an immediate need today, like food, like clothing, like rent assistance. I know I'm forgetting something. And we also have services to strengthen futures, depending on what each of our neighbors is looking for. So we have job coaching, we have computer workshops, we have free computer giveaway programs, we have community art programs to bring neighbors together across a wide variety of diverse experiences. We have literacy programs for folks who are seeking to get their high school equivalency or learning English or any version of any of that. So we have Help Today, and Strengthening Tomorrow kinds of programs. When we moved into our building 20 years ago, that's the first time that entire array of programs was under one roof. And that was a huge celebration. It was a huge milestone. And since that time, we were immediately full, and we've doubled in size. So the space constraints kind of speak for themselves. When we were exploring the feasibility of adding space, which, as you mentioned, we're adding a building directly next door, so we'll have a 2-building campus in Wheaton going forward. The part of the feasibility was conversations with volunteers who had been involved with us long term, and almost all of them stopped us and said, you don't have to make the case. We get it. We've lived it. We've seen it. We see the food pantry shelves extending out into the parking lot because we can't fit everything inside. We have seen job coaches meeting with people in hallways because there was no space. So the case really did make itself. And our volunteer and staff crew have extended and represented our values of welcome and dignity and inclusion of everybody who's walked in the door, but the building didn't match those values. So, it's hard to say we're happy you're here when there's literally no room for you in the room. So now our facilities in Wheaton will be able to extend that same sense of welcome that our team has been doing for so long. And the campus isn't 100% open yet, but maybe by the time this goes live, it will be. We're very, very close. And it is just amazing to be inside the spaces that we were imagining for so long. It was really a COVID time passion project that we had set this goal right before the pandemic to fix our space issues, but didn't know what that was going to mean. So we spent, several years during those really intense times planning and learning and replanning. And I just couldn't be prouder of what we're going to be able to offer to the community.
Yes, it's something to be Looking forward to it, indeed. I hope you guys have some sort of celebration or ribbon cutting or something to
Many celebrations to come.
mark that. Yes, for
Yes,
sure.
and in line with our 50th anniversary in 2025. So it will all converge in a really nice way.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, what I've learned in talking with a lot of nonprofit organizations is no nonprofit organization is an island unto itself. There's partnerships and connections that are made. What's unique about, and it's not that unique, but it's certainly one of very few organizations that I've talked to that offer a lot of services under one roof. Between the food pantry and the career building skills and computer skills and those future type projects versus the needs of today, there's a lot of services. I don't know how many, if I count them on one hand or two hands, it's probably a dozen though, right? Is that
Yes.
fair to say?
Yes.
So what are the gaps being filled by the partnerships elsewhere in the county? Is what
I really appreciate that question. And partnerships are sort of another leg of the stool that we need to be able to exist. We try very diligently not to recreate any wheels of what resources already are in place. In addition, just talking about location, in addition to our Wheaton facility, we have a full service facility that PRC owns in Westmont. And we also have 30 program partner locations. So to begin to answer your partnership question, we work with any organization that has a building that they would like to offer some use of to create a different kind of resource for the community where they exist. So programs that PRC can take on the road, we will go and use a classroom in a community center, a school, a library, a faith organization, maybe once a week, maybe once a month. It really depends what might work for that organization. We're talking with some building management firms about maybe using some of their space. So we can take an art class, we can take a computer class or a jobs workshop out into the community where it's not only is it more convenient for folks seeking services and the volunteers who deliver them, but it also is more efficient for us because we don't then, that's square footage that we're bringing impact and mission to, but we don't have to rent. And it's a win-win for the participants and for the organizations that want to use their buildings in a creative way. And so much of that happened in the pandemic when people were not in the same locations that they normally were. So organizations were much more open and sought us out for that kind of partnership when the regular flow for all of us was just disrupted, and we're kind of in a new mode now where it's probably we're not going to see what the old practice was. We're going to figure out what the new ways of coming together are, and buildings are maybe open for use in different ways.
Wow, some great partnerships happening there.
Yeah, in addition to direct programming, we also refer out for things that PRC doesn't do. So I mentioned we have rent and mortgage assistance. That's a limited pool of money, and every year that runs out before the requests run out. So we connect with other organizations or faith communities that might also have something similar. If we can either partner or refer somebody there. We have a clothing closet in Wheaton and in Westmont, and sometimes people need more specific or more variety than what we have. So we refer out for other clothing resources. Often people will need things like furniture. We don't have the kind of warehouse space to hold that, but we have partners who do. So there's a really robust referral network. And I want to give a shout out to one of our really especially trained and time-intensive volunteer roles, which is our specialized intake volunteers. They are the people who answer the social services hotline calls every year, and calls to that number have gone up. In the past year, we got over 5,000 calls to that number, which was up from 4,400 the year before. So we know that that's one of our barometers on how our neighbors are doing, is what kinds of requests do we get and how many do we get. That hotline is covered by volunteers who are super caring, and super knowledgeable of what all those resources are. They have databases and binders full of things depending what people need, and they spend a lot of care and time talking with folks to see if we can help or if we can connect them somewhere that can.
Wow. That is amazing. So 5,000 some odd calls a year.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great key performance indicator of how it's
Yeah, well, we wish it was less. I mean, we wish
it's
the
what the
need
community
wasn't
needs
that
are.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it hasn't. It's gone up over the years as as PRC has grown and just different changes. But we would love for there to be a day where where food wasn't as needed or where emergency assistance wasn't as needed. But for the foreseeable future, I'm so glad that a place like PRC is here when people down the street from us might hit a bump in the road.
Yeah. And that's it. Sometimes that is just a bump in the road. You're doing well.
Yeah.
Job is lost for whatever reason,
Yep.
or a situation
Yep.
changes, and there's that bump.
Yeah. And if you don't find a place that can help you, it can spiral just from one bump. So we hear that over and over again, that we were able to help people navigate that, so a crisis didn't happen.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. You can kind of see how that would spiral
Mhm.
out of a controlled situation. Well, I think you've said it all with PRC and your journey that led you there. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate that, and also just letting us know all the different services that People's Resource Center does. I had no idea that you get 5,000 calls in a given year.
Yes.
I had no idea that you have over, what is it, 2,000 staff and volunteers, which it's now 2,300, right?
2,300, mostly volunteers.
Mostly volunteers, right? So it's a
We have
relatively
we have 45 staff, and the rest of that number is volunteers. And staff exist where we need to support and engage volunteers to go out and expand our mission.
Sure, and serving between 25 and 30,000 plus
Yes.
residents a year.
Yes. We have many, many more volunteer opportunities and really creative and fun ones than I've been able to mention. So please check out our website at People's RC. There's an S after people, peoplesrc.org. We have scores and scores of volunteer opportunities, and we're adding more every day, usually because someone calls us and says, I can do this, would that help? So we're very adaptable and would love you to check that out.
Great. And so all of your volunteer opportunities are now on your website?
Yes.
Great.
They're all on the website. All of our program information is on the website. So I invite you to take a look at that. All of our services are at no cost to the residents who turn to us, which means that we do rely on donations, donations of food, donations of clothing, donations of back to school and holiday items, donations of money. We have a lot of partnerships for sourcing food. So if you would like to entrust us with $1, we can stretch that into what would be $5 worth of groceries at the supermarket. So we would welcome any way that you might feel compelled or inspired to support our mission.
Yeah, I always find that interesting is how much a dollar can be stretched when it comes to the food pantries and
Yes.
buying those groceries. So yes, $1 here stretches to 5. So to get involved, still the same URL, peoplesrc.com, peoples are plural.
Correct.
RC.
.org.
.org. Yeah, all nonprofits should be at .org. And all the volunteer opportunities are on the website. Other ways to get involved through either donation. Again, $1 stretches to 5 when it comes to food. And there's other ways to get involved, like volunteering.
Volunteer, get involved, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter. We would love to keep you updated. There's always really fun news coming out of PRC and some great stories of how we're impacting our neighbors and partnering with the community.
Fun news, some magical work, and definitely a huge impact, which is why, I think raising the money for your capital campaign I'm not gonna say it was no big deal, because every capital campaign is a huge deal, but you got a lot of support from the community.
We're in the last few percentage points right now. So we are close to goal. We could still use a little bit of a boost to get over to that goal and help us put all the finishing touches there. But the community's been incredibly supportive, and we're really encouraged.
Well, best of luck to you. And I usually ask this question with every show is, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners out there?
Yes, I think this is a really creative and generative time for nonprofits in the entire community to come together in new ways. I'm seeing it happen where people are having different kinds of conversations to imagine what sort of community we can create together 5 years, 10 years from now. So PRC is definitely part of that. I think it's going to be an exciting time for all of DuPage County and for the impact that mission-based organizations can have. So I hope everybody finds a way to plug into that, and it's going to be, I think, a very positive and energizing time.
Well said. Well said. Well, Jenny, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else did too.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and your questions were great. I really enjoyed reflecting on those. So, Paul, thanks for all you do to lift up some of the important work in the community.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm just asking the questions that I think people would want to hear. But also, I learned a lot, as I said, as well. So thank you. Till next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.